What if I told you there once lived a king so diseased, so deformed, so grotesque, that when he finally died, his corpse exploded inside his own coffin? Not in a movie, not in fantasy, this was real life. This was Henry VIII, you've heard the sanitized version. 6 wives, the Church of England, some beheadings, the fat guy with a crown, but what the textbooks refuse to teach you is far more disturbing. Because this was a man so rotted, so paranoid, and so corrupted by power that even death couldn't stop him from horrifying his kingdom. This is the true story of the king who rotted alive. By the end of his life, Henry VIII wasn't a man, he was a walking corpse. His body weighed over 400 pounds, with a waist wider than the average man is tall. But it wasn't just fat. His legs were covered in massive, festering ulcers, pus-filled craters that never healed. The stench, unbearable. You could smell the king from rooms away. His servants drew straws to see who would dress him, because getting close meant risking vomiting or worse. And still, he ruled, declaring himself God's chosen, even as his own flesh rotted from the inside out. So, how did this once promising prince become a monster? In 1536, a jousting accident changed everything. Henry was knocked unconscious for 2 hours. Today, doctors believe it was a severe brain injury, one that caused dramatic mood swings, violent paranoia, and an explosive temper. From that moment on, Henry became unrecognizable. What followed was a reign of fear, especially for his wives. Yes, Henry had 6 wives, but what they endured was more horrifying than you've ever been told. Anne Boleyn, accused of cheating, including with her own brother. Henry forced her to watch 5 men be executed, then had her beheaded too. Catherine Howard, a teenager. When Henry learned of her past, he rewrote the law just so he could have her killed. Catherine of Aragon, banished, isolated, forbidden to see her own daughter. She died alone, possibly poisoned. Anne of Cleves, so terrified of Henry, she pretended their marriage never happened to survive. Even Jane Seymour, the lucky one who died naturally, didn't escape his cruelty. He began seeking his next wife 9 days after her funeral. These weren't royal romances, they were rituals of fear, orchestrated by a man losing his mind and his humanity. But Henry's madness didn't stop there. He wasn't just obsessed with control, he was addicted to consumption, of food, power, and everything around him. He ate like a man trying to outrun death. Over 5,000 calories a day, entire pigs, rivers of wine, pies stacked high. His kitchens employed over 200 staff, cooking 800 dishes daily. He believed that certain foods gave him magical powers. Swan for grace, oysters for virility, venison to be a better hunter. Each bite was pre-tasted by servants. Then he'd wait 30 minutes to see if they dropped dead before touching his plate. Every meal was a 4-hour performance where courtiers watched their king slowly gorge himself while rotting before their eyes. And even as doctors begged him to change, no one dared criticize him, because suggesting the king was ill, that was treason. But the rot didn't end with his body, it infected his mind. Henry turned his court into a surveillance nightmare. He had peepholes drilled into palace walls to spy on conversations. He had spies watching other spies, reporting on nobles, servants, even his own daughters. He slept with crossbows beside his bed, kept daggers under his pillow, ordered secret tunnels in every palace so he could escape at a moment's notice. And if he dreamed someone betrayed him, he'd have them executed the next morning. People were killed for existing near him when he was in a bad mood. His paranoia infected everyone. Nobles betrayed each other, servants lived in fear, and England became a kingdom ruled not by law, but by Henry's nightmares. And then came the end. Henry had grown so large he could no longer walk. Servants used pulley chairs to move him around the palace. But every time they moved him, chunks of his body would fall off. Yes, literal flesh, black and rotting, leaving a trail behind him. Doctors refused to go near him. The smell alone made them vomit. When he finally died, the horror still wasn't over. His body had swollen from internal rot. They wrapped him in lead sheets, sealed him in a reinforced coffin. But the gases building inside his corpse caused it to explode. His coffin burst open mid-funeral procession, spraying rotting royal flesh across the hearse. Witnesses say dogs licked up the remains that leaked onto the road. They had to dig his grave 3 times, because the ground kept collapsing under the weight of his bloated corpse. For weeks afterward, people reported noises and foul smells coming from the tomb. Some say it was his ghost. Others say it was just Henry, still decomposing. Even in death, he was a disaster. This was the true Henry VIII, not the charming king on coins and portraits, but a rotting tyrant, a gluttonous god king who ruled with fear, died in filth, and left behind a legacy of pain and paranoia. His story isn't one of glory. It's a warning that unchecked power doesn't just corrupt, it devours. If this disturbed you, good, because you've just scratched the surface of history's darkest truths. The past isn't clean, it isn't noble. It's soaked in blood, madness, and rot. So if you're ready for more horrifying stories that schools would never dare to teach, subscribe and don't leave this channel, because what's buried beneath the surface is far more twisted than fiction could ever imagine.